we have the term Maya, or the illusion, the kind of dream that we're living, or creating, I suppose, not living, but really creating our own dream.
Right. Right. Yep. Yeah.
Our own false reality. I'm thinking about that in terms of how the Course is bringing us back to this, or calling our attention out of the dream that we're creating to a larger awareness of our place or non-place in everything. I don't know how to say that, because place indicates a kind of location.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think we can say that, but certainly an awareness of this, the non-dream.
Yeah. Yeah. The waking up is what we have to do. Like when we wake up from a dream, which everyone experiences, and you go, oh, okay, that's not what's really going on. That's our initial reaction. It's just a dream. And I think that's what the Course is saying. This is the waking state, is just a dream. We have to wake up from that and see the actual reality. We have, the smaller boxes inside of larger boxes. We wake up from that dream, but there's another dream going on, and it's a dream within a dream within a dream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some parts of the dream are clearer, I think, for our awareness. They're more transparent as to what's actually happening. This one, I think, is also fairly transparent, the waking state. But until we go beyond the usual way of perceiving and reacting, we can't see that. We don't experience this as being a manifestation of what? Infinity. We don't see all of the activity as having its basis in quietness, because the activity is the pulsating is happening too quick. The pulses are there, bang, bang, bang. We can't see the spaces between them.
And we are captivated by that diversity that you're talking about.
Right, yeah. Our senses get pulled in, even more so these days with all the technology. We're constantly spending our time on distraction, never getting to that deeper place inside, because we have to shut out that sensory input to do that and go inside, put our attention inside rather than outside. I think as time goes on, we're doing more and more of the opposite of that, at least in the West. And as a result, we're getting more and more out of touch with ourselves and with what the Course is saying. As I said before, how many people think what's in the Course is absolute nonsense? Crazy. That's nuts. That can't be true. And because in the experience, it can't be true for that person. What are they talking about? How can you say this is an illusion? It's obvious that it's not. And then it's obvious that you're still in the dream. But, to see outside the dream, you have to get outside the dream. And that's what all of these lessons, I think, are pointing us toward doing. If you practice them enough over and over again, there may be a dent made there where you begin to see this isn't all there is. And therefore, I am more than what I think I am. We're part of creation. We're part of the waking state. We're part of the physical environment. So if that is that way, we have to be that way as well. Or if we're that way, the environment has to be that way as well. It's all reflective of the same thing.
And this inspires an awful lot of fear.
Yeah, on the part of the ego. We just want to be secure and safe. This is not very secure and safe. There are things in Tantra or more advanced yoga that involve what they call kriyas. And a kriya is a spontaneous movement many times, or a spontaneous utterance of something or other. You just start vocalizing out of the blue, whatever it might be. And it's spontaneous. We don't feel we're in conscious control of it. And people get very scared what that might happen. What's happening to me? This thing is coming up and I'm not controlling it. And when it's really strong, you may feel you can't stop it, even though you really can. You can, if you don't like it, you can just stop it. It just ends because ego comes in and cancels out all of that deeper movement. But the fear factor is there. Once it starts happening, it's not something we're used to. If we want to be in control of everything all the time and you're out of control with your own body or speech, or your mind or whatever it might be, you get scared. What's happening? I have to be in control to be safe and secure. Again, placing that insistence from nature on being in control of what's going on so you can perpetuate your own physical existence. If I know what's what, I'm in control, everything's safe, I'm secure, yahoo, we're all set. However, when you're not, that's when the fear automatically comes in, even though there's nothing to be afraid of in this instance. Instead of running away, suppose they just let it happen. What happens? And what happens essentially is freedom. What happens is you have more control over everything from a much deeper level of your own self, rather than your ego and personality. It's the ego and personality that wants the safety and the security. And to do that, it kind of puts boundaries on everything by defining everything as being this thing or that thing. And we do that internally with ourselves, which I think is a mistake. That's meant for our own survival in the physical world. Yeah, the lion comes jumping after you and wants to eat you, or tiger, or whatever. You pay attention to that and get away. You see food, well, that's good, and on and on. We classify things so we can survive here physically, but then we're classifying things internally. And that is not quite appropriate because it has nothing to do with our physical survival. It's not a threat from the outside, it's our own stuff inside. And the fear just grows when we do that. And many times, if you look in mystical literature of any tradition, whether it's Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Hindu, whatever it may be, all these traditions are saying the same thing. You find people that go through this, what in Christian tradition is called the dark night of the soul. It's like, everything's gone. All the good stuff is gone. What's happening to me? And what's happening is you're transforming. That was, I think St. John of the Cross wrote that. And he also wrote the other important book, which is The Ascent of Mount Carmel, which is the same thing. You're making that ascent to the top of the mountain of consciousness. On the way, you may fall down. On the way, you may get lost, and on and on and on. This is common in every single tradition. If that common and you see the end result, if you keep climbing the mountain, why do we run away? Because we don't have the information. The knowledge is not out there. The experience is not out there. We just have this nice, safe, ego-defined reality and ego-defined functioning. And we put the boundaries, I'm me, you're you, this is the door, this is the floor, et cetera, et cetera. When in reality, we don't have to be confined to those definitions. Those definitions are important while we're awake, but they're not otherwise. They're just not. It's like rational mind and logical conclusions are good when we're awake. They don't work in dreams. They just don't. They don't work in any other state of consciousness except the waking state. But since we're so attached to the waking state, we think that's it. We don't allow for the other states to come in because that requires more letting go, more lack of boundaries as to who you are in order to participate in those levels of creation that have less boundaries. We have to have less boundaries. And that's too frightening for a lot of people. So instead, they marginalize or lots of times demonize these other states of consciousness or the methods that get you to those states. And that's shutting off all the potential we have, which is unfortunate because we don't have the full picture as to why the fear is there.
And, that 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 conversation about boundaries is interesting to me because, and the definition of what safe is, right? Because
Yeah,
we think we are creating a safety that, and it's certainly scary to say this, but it's actually non-existent.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And um and so are, because because what the course is pointing to is that everything that you think that you know about your reality and the dream state that you're in, or the waking state that you're in, is just made up.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
That's
creating it.
that's
Second intent.
really hard to well, I mean, it is. I say it's really hard to come to terms with, but it's actually incredibly liberating.
Right. Right.
So it's not, but it is.
Yeah. It's only liberating if you let go, you know? And that's the whole thing. All these, paradoxes here. It's this thing and it's the opposite at the same time. Logical minds don't do that one. Rational minds can't swallow that. And so we would say that's nonsense and shut it off. Again, emphasizing the left brain over the right. We should be emphasizing both at the same time. Then what seems to be logically inconsistent is not. It's a different type of logic. It's not the logic of the left brain, of the rational mind, but the rational mind is still there. It's still included. You don't throw it out. It's an important thing that we have to function here. We need it, but we don't include our intuitive or our deeper aspects in the process. And if we do, we don't know how to integrate the two, because they seem to be totally opposite things. It's either or here. It's either a book or a box, or it's either this or that. It's not both. Something isn't a door and a cloud at the same time. But in this state of consciousness, it is. And that's what sounds totally ridiculous on the surface. But it's not when seen from that deeper level. You still distinguish a door from a cloud. You don't try to open the cloud and walk into the sky. But at the same time, you know that these are manifestations of the same thing. That the door and the cloud are my perceptions of that one thing in the waking state. That expression is seen by me as a door, or a cloud. But to see the roots of it, you have to strip away all those boundaries and all those definitions. That means you have to strip away the boundaries and definitions of yourself. And that's what we don't want to do. That's what an ego doesn't want to do. It wants to be safe, secure, in control at all times. Total illusion. We're never in control. What control do we have over the weather? What control do we have over earthquakes? Asteroids, and on and on and on. We can make a very long list. We just make this illusion up so that we can feel safe and secure. We can relax. We can enjoy things without knowing that enjoyment is extremely conditional and will not deliver full enjoyment, because what's the underlying basis of it? Fear. How is that enjoyable, to an ego? It's just not. Strip away the fear, you have full enjoyment. And you can't do that while attached to the ego and attached to the boundaries. So peeling away those layers, that's lesson after lesson in the course, I think. Lesson after lesson from the very first lesson. Just thinking this thing that sounds nonsensical. It gets less nonsensical as you get deeper into the lessons and start getting it. But start out with something that sounds nuts. We have to make that leap outside of those boundaries. Be willing to do it. I think that's what the Course says. You have to be willing to do this. Otherwise, it won't work. So it has to come from us inside. We have to have that motivation within ourselves.
Well, as you were saying that, we are constructing our version of safety, which is non-existent. I was thinking about how the letting go into this, the more fully we're letting go into the non, let's say, identification with our constructed reality, the safer we become.
Right. And the more contracted we become. If we have to control something, what do you do to control it? You kind of grab a hold of it and steer it in a certain direction that you want.
I think you misunderstood what I said. What I was saying is that once we let go of that idea of our own safety and the ego version of it, and we're letting go, we become more safe. In reality.
Yes,
the words aren't working. But
that's why it's easy to get the wrong idea with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To define these things clearly is almost impossible. How do you define something that doesn't have a definition? It doesn't work. We just can point at it. But yeah, our urge to control is a narrowing of awareness.
And a reaction to the ultimate truth was that maybe we won't admit to ourselves is that we know there's no way to be safe.
Right. Yeah.
I think we're reacting on some level, on some unconscious level, to the knowledge that all of our efforts are in vain.
Yeah.
However, that free fall into accepting that is the safety.
Right.
The real, with a capital R, safety.
Yeah. To totally let go is not holding on. Not holding on means not controlling. Not controlling means the basis of fear is no longer the motivating factor. So if you're not fearful, then you're freer. And that's so difficult to see from an ego point of view. As a matter of fact, I don't think you can see it from an ego point of view. You might get a hint, but you can't really see it. You can't really experience it. And the more we hold on, the more narrow that becomes, the more miserable we get, the more we have to defend ourselves all the time because the enemies just multiply more and more and more and more. That is fear, and the things that are associated with that fear just keep on growing. It's an unconscious process, but it happens more and more and more till we box ourselves into this little tiny funnel that, that's life for us. It's kind of miserable. It's so weird that the very thing we're afraid of doing is the thing that takes us away from the misery. The thing that people say don't do, oh, that's crazy, or, as I said, demonize. That's the thing that will get you away from your own demons and away from all of this craziness. And the Course is very direct on that. I mean, it doesn't fool around with the language, saying that what we're doing usually is insane, which it is. It makes no sense. We're running away from total life, total peace and bliss and so on in favor of this conditional thing that has more and more conditions as time goes on. It's crazy. But it's crazy when you see it from that point of view, not from the ego point of view.
So we're working on this idea of, freedom and being beyond limits, being limitless, which is the ultimate expression of our nature as something beyond fear-based and into a love-based, what that means. And I don't think, like you've said before, we don't have the right words. We can say love, but that word is so loaded with all kinds of weird and limited versions and conditional versions of what it is, that we almost need something bigger than that, a different word altogether. But
Yeah.
but certainly that is where the Course is, making the distinction between love and fear.
Right. And most love that we use to define is based on attachment, which means there's fear involved.
Mm-hmm.
If you're attached to something, you might lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
Not love.
Right, not love at all.
Not love. Yeah.
I don't think most people get it. I don't know if I get it either, at least not fully. But love has nothing to do with attachment. It has nothing to do with,
possession or
right. You love this person and not another, and all that. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's universal. It's unconditional. It's overwhelming. Period. It's there all the time.
It's a kind of it's what's life affirming, life giving, and as opposed to what is restricting and labeling, identifying, like you said, sorting out the differentiation. And I don't know, I don't know, Thom, if we can really get it or not in this body, in this time and space, in this world, in this consciousness. It feels as if by nature of what and who we are, it may not be possible.
I think it is possible. I think we can experience it more and more and more. I don't know to what extent we can go, in the physical body, as opposed to not. But I think we can strip away those boundaries and experience what's actually there. That's what I mean. Love is not something that we just feel. It's throughout all of creation. It's just there if we open our eyes to see it. The same with peace, the same with happiness. All those things are just there. They're part of the manifestation in creation. They're part of what the Course would say the Holy Spirit, maybe, or the Son of God. And of course, in the end, the Father, if you want to use the Christian terms that the Course uses. That it's all inherent within the being of who we are. And has nothing to do with our experiences in the outside world, who's there, who isn't, what we like, what we dislike. Those are all superficial things that come and go. That's why so many relationships, I think, fall apart, because we identify it with the things that come and go. So they come and they go. We're identifying love as I have this attachment to you, and this attachment to you is conditioned upon what I like or dislike. So if you do what I like, then I love you. But if you don't, I get mad at you. I'm really angry with you. Or if you do something really crazy, I might get scared of you. It's not, and when it has nothing to do with that, that's behavior. Those are the things that are transitory. The love the Course talks about is permanent. It's never not there. And it's throughout all of creation. It's much more expansive, much more intense, much more overwhelming than even the most intense love that we can experience towards someone. And it really is. But we turn our backs to it because we're more concerned with physical survival and fear. That was I don't know if I mentioned this before, there was a book in the 70s or 80s called Love is Letting Go of Fear, which I think is a good expression. Let go, and there it is, let go of the fear, of the boundaries, and there it is. It's just there. We have made it so it's not there. We have created in our own minds and in this kind of consensus reality that this is what life consists of and not the other thing. The other thing is there in myths and stories and fairy tales and wishful thinking, maybe in the Bible and so on. It's going to be there when we die. It's not going to be there when we're here. And I don't think that's true. It can be here. It can be there. It can be anywhere. The here and there is all in our minds. And so if it's in heaven, then it's here too. If you look at in the New Testament, the kingdom of heaven, it's here now and within you. You know, the word means all those things. There's no place that it's not. Why did we think it's someplace we go to when we die and it's not here? That's not what it says. And that's certainly not what the Course is saying. We can have it right now. Why do we not have it right now? Because we're not looking at it. We've set up the barriers and the boundaries. Take them away, and there it is. Spontaneously. Just like when you wake up from a dream at night, you wake up here, you open your eyes, and the room is just there. The waking state is there spontaneously. It's the same thing when you wake up from this illusion. It's just there spontaneously. We don't have to do anything. It's already there. Just as the room is there when you're dreaming. For other people that are in the waking state that are not dreaming, here's the room. For you, it's not there. Change the state of consciousness, and it is.
Well, you said over and over again that, it's about letting go of fear, and that seems a very difficult thing to do.
For the ego, as long as we hold on to our attachments, it is. It's actually not. It's intensely simple. There's almost nothing to it. Any meditation tradition structures a method so that you can let go spontaneously, just by practicing the method. It just happens because we can't make it happen. So if we try to let go from the level of the ego, good luck. That's just not going to happen. Because why? Because we're letting go of the ego. How can the ego let go of itself on the level of the ego? It won't happen. We have to just, let go. And what happens is the ego comes right back in because that's what we're used to. And it's that going back and forth that makes that boundary less and less ironclad. It gets more and more ambiguous, more and more flexible, and we can let the deeper aspects of our own selves come through to the ego level. And the ego's okay with it. That has to happen gradually. If it happens right away, we're probably going to end up intensely disoriented in every way possible. So meditate, gradual change. And it happens by itself, easily, effortlessly, and we don't have to worry about it. It's all we're doing is becoming aware of what's already the case. We're not introducing anything new into the equation. It's already there. Just whatever method you may use, whether it be the Course lessons and really get into them over and over and over again, meditation, whatever it might be, we have to let go of our bounded awareness to see unbounded awareness and to see that all these things the Course is saying, what we're talking about in all of these talks, that it's true. But you can hear it forever. You're never going to get it unless you experience it. And that requires that going through that dark night of the soul sometimes, knowing that on the other side, there's light. It's there. We just have to go through with what our ego is putting ourselves through to see the fuller picture. In other words, you don't give up. You just keep on going. Keep on trucking.